Hi, Annie here again. So I am back to continue on this thread of abortion, the topic of abortion. Hot topic right now, unfortunately. So in my other video, I kind of gave an introduction into how I look at current events around this, with the abusive power structures that are currently what we're operating within the government and patriarchy, kind of grasping at power, which is how we got here in the first place. I do not claim to be any sort of expert around like legal stuff, law stuff. I actually consider myself a little naive there. But that's not what this is about anyways. I have spent the good part of my adult life studying somatics, studying dance therapy, Brema, psychedelics, living in the Bay Area, really indulging and also immersing myself in therapies that are really at the forefront of our psychology system, that embrace less or non-Western perspectives and modalities. Not always cognitive based. So yeah, I gave that perspective in my last intro around this topic. And I just want to mention in like all the videos on this topic, search engine Plan C. There are many people working together to help support folks have safe access who might not in the state where you're at. It's just, if I was the type of person to get embarrassed, I would be. But, people apologize. Like, I met a Russian person the other day who was my Uber driver, and they were like apologizing. I'm like, you aren't Russia. I am not America. I just live here. I don't identify with nationalism. It's a bizarre, made up thing. We are all people, and we're living on stolen land. So, I was looking up some stuff, and it's just like the bizarreness. That's what I started to talk about. Judges like refusing access to abortion for like teenagers because of grades, and this was a Florida thing, but just so many bizarre situations. I'm gonna be very candid because this is like what this is about. My YouTube channel, it's like I work in the realm of very personal work with folks, sexual trauma, somatic experiencing. I'm also not a licensed therapist, and I'm just here to express myself. And it is my opinion. This is what I will say to my closest friends. These are not topics we should be talking about at all. Actually, first of all, this abortion experience that I had is my personal experience. It's not anybody's business but mine. It's not even necessarily the business of the person I got pregnant with, although I've shared it with them because they're in my life, but it's only my business. And I'm sharing it because I really want to empower people and normalize the thing, because people get celebrations and money for having babies and for getting married, but like, is anyone getting, what does the support look like around something that's really hard and also like a beautiful choice for someone to choose their own life in 2022, just as women did for most of all of history until now, which is also a part of a population issue we have. We have a population issue. I don't understand what's going on, really, besides some meta stuff I won't get into now. But not trying to go too much down that tangent, but there's no conversations about laws on men's bodies. So that's my point with, we should not even be having this conversation at all. We should be talking about the climate emergency. We should be talking about people who don't have their basic needs met, like food, water, and shelter. If we have globalization and we're so advanced, what are we doing with that? This is directly related to white supremacy. Globalism and capitalism as the modern chapter of colonialism. And we're just in this momentum. It's a lot of momentum, right? And so we have a population issue. We have an abuse of power that's normalized as culture. It's so normalized. It is. People think it's culture. No, we're not having conversations about men's bodies getting vasectomies until they've proven they're stable people. That's not something we're talking about. It's really hard to talk about population in general without people going to epigenetics, because there's so much trauma. It's understandable because of the history of colonialism and white supremacy. It's very understandable. And there's actually, like, people are everywhere. Like, it's a real issue. Like all other ecosystems and species of animals, keep a watch on frogs, like, they're disappearing every day, and we're just taking over. So the fact that in the United States of America in 2022, almost 2023, we're even talking about this is ridiculous. So here I am talking about it with all of that as my preface, because that's my very personal place that I come from. I feel very connected to the earth because we're all an extension of her, and like, we must speak for the trees. We must speak for the beings that give us air and share this space with us, because they don't speak English. They don't speak this situation. And I'm not trying to be woo-woo or project my spirituality. I am speaking the truth. It's an emergency situation. Every little bit counts too, so no pressure. But more on that later. Yeah. So, yeah, I had an abortion about over a decade ago, in my early 20s, and I had some difficulty with it, and I will share what that difficulty is. But it wasn't about having an abortion. The choice itself was, excuse me, it wasn't really a choice for me. I've always known, because of everything I just said, I would only have a child if it was something very intentional that I do, and bring a child into the world via my body. I'm very much for like collectivism and supporting each other. There's already a bunch of kids here. So not to say those who don't have their own offspring aren't also into collectivism. I'm just speaking for myself. Yeah, so I was traveling. I am protecting the privacy of other people involved in my story, so I'm not gonna get into super details, because it doesn't really matter anyways. This is like my feelings and my experience, and also just to protect privacy. So yeah, I was traveling I graduated college. I was traveling after college, and I was very surprised. Also, part of me not surprised because I didn't use protection. Having sex with other young people and not using condoms is a risk around pregnancy. Obviously, STIs as well. And I don't have personal stories around that, but I was not, and have never been, on hormonal birth control. I did not take Plan B. I would just, after a few weeks, I just like noticed, I hadn't got my period. I started just kind of feeling like tender breast, and took a pregnancy test. And I was traveling across the United States, like 30 hours from the time when I found out I was pregnant. And I immediately started thinking about, I'm going to go through an abortion. That's it. Like, I never considered having a child at that time. And so from my story, that's a part of it that I feel like contributes, is while I had both physical and emotional challenges, I never felt conflict about the choice itself. The other choices within the situation. Do I tell my family? Do I tell the person I'm traveling with? So being in my early 20s, never having opened up about certain conversations about sex. I don't come from a family that's very open, hence I've made a career out of supporting us changing the culture around vulnerability and authenticity. Around these things, shame around sex, it's in our culture. It's so normal, unfortunately, and it's not a culture. It's just trauma. Could be just considered trauma, avoiding a whole topic that relates to every person. That stems perhaps from religion and patriarchy. So, because once we start having these conversations, it's supporting everything falling apart, which is not fast enough. Anyways, so traveled. It was the holidays. I had to go to the place where my family lives in Wyoming. That's where both my parents' families are from. So I spent some holiday time while pregnant in Wyoming, and I could not get an abortion in Wyoming. It's still a place where you might not want to do that. I just looked up the current laws, and it still seems to be a little bit, it is legal, but this was 10 years ago. It was not an option. I also chose not to try to go through that procedure with my family. Just simply at the time, like I said, in my early 20s, it wasn't comfortable. I had fear that I would have to caretake my family's feelings, like feeling bad for me. That was an assumption I made. And I didn't need anybody to feel bad for me. I didn't want to have to caretake my parents or anybody close to me, coming from a more conservative space around this. And I did tell a lot of my family later. And once we had established more of a rapport around certain subjects, really grateful for my brother. And the one person I was able to tell, one of my cousins, very grateful, while I was there. So I was waiting days and maybe even several weeks before I was able to travel back to California, where I was a resident, still am, to be able to go through the procedure. So holding this in my body, holding it as sort of like a secret in a way, that part was difficult. Definitely came with some challenges, like I said, because the choice was not a conflict. That's kind of where like a lot of my conflict was. And since then, since talking with a lot of my family about this, it's been very healing. And obviously can't go back in time. I don't regret anything. And I've been able to have really healing conversations with several of my family members. Hey, this happened. I didn't feel comfortable sharing it at the time. It was just my personal, I didn't want to. That's it. It's as simple as that. I was able to receive reassurances that I was, that there wasn't any judgment and that they would have supported me. And I just have to end on this note. This is the end of this middle part of the story. And I'll finish up in the next segment with my actual abortion and my arrival back in California. So I grew up having avoidance around the topic of sex. And I didn't get a sex talk. The extent of my sex talk was, let me know if I can buy you tampons. And being a sex coach and a somatic experiencing practitioner, I have found and continue in the work of finding balance in my healing and expression with my mother and our personal work together, which I'm so grateful for. And I'm so grateful for my mom, my dad too, the rest of my family, but very grateful for my relationship with my mother. And so besides that sex talk, that one statement around tampons, she said something to me like in passing, like not in a conversation about sex or babies or safety, but just threw this out there at some point. These are her words. If I ever wanted to have an abortion, I would not tell the man. So I remember that imprint so well. And obviously that's a very personal choice, a situational choice, a deeply unique choice to make. But I found that so empowering that she told me that as a young person, like, oh, I don't even have to share. Like, that's my body. I could just go do that and not be involved in the emotions of whoever I got pregnant with. So I'm going to end on that and take good care. I'll see you in the next segment.